Welcome, everyone. I see a good crowd. I see Catherine is here. Carol, hi. George, hi. Brian, I appreciate you being here today. I want to be able to pick on a couple of you today. So can I just give me a thumbs up if I can pick on you? Because I have a couple questions I'm going to ask the group and I might need some of your help, okay? So I'm excited to be able to go over this, going to make it a valuable session for you. We'll go the full hour. And what we're going to cover is we're going to cover Cybersecurity Explained, just so that you understand the basics of it. We're going to talk about why this is an identity crisis. We're going to talk about the threat landscape that impacts you and your organization, regardless of the size of your organization. And we're going to talk about some of the best practices you can use to take away from this session and apply directly after this session. All right. And then we'll do a Q&A, but also feel free to put questions in your chat box. And then I'll give you some resources that you can refer to after the session so that you can be, powerful in terms of the knowledge that you've applied today and then share it with your other teammates. Now, I want to start with letting you know that much to everyone's dismay in the cybersecurity world, you are the target. So people in every organization, doesn't matter what size of organization they're in, I find that individuals tell me all the time, what would I have? Why would any hacker or ransomware gang actually care about me and what would I have to offer, right? So these fraudsters, these hackers, they actually exploit the trust and the technology and the emotion of you. And they're going to craft scams faster than many of our companies or us can keep up with. They're always like one step ahead. So we have different names for them, but we're going to call them hackers. I sometimes even want to call them scammers because it's becoming common language to hear the word scam in all kind of landscape of whatever you're using. So to me, it is one and the same. Now, what do they want? So let's look that up. Okay, so right now, confidential data, that is the number one asset in an organization, and it's crucial to do in your everyday business, right? So you're touching data every day, every single day. Now, what is interesting is most people don't realize what data they're touching that's actually valuable, and valuable in a way that maybe you don't realize could hurt your organization if not handled properly. So we need to know what kind of data are we handling every day? And is it confidential? Is it not confidential? Now, one of the things that we interact with every day is called PII, personally identifiable information. So if you could tell me right now, I have a question that will come up in a minute, but we're going to look up what PII is to start with. So in the chat, I want you to look it up. So it's personally identifiable information, or also called PII. Look it up, and then I want you to tell me, what is it? What does it include? I'll give you a little bit of time to do that because everyone in this group handles it. And so it's very important for you to understand this term. Now, the reason this term is important is because it's actually a legal term. It's a privacy term. It falls under the privacy law, and all of you are actually accountable to following and adhering to privacy laws. Those who are in the medical practice, you understand clearly what I'm talking about. So please just put in the chat. There's no wrong answer here, but I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page. Excellent. So Lorinda said, any data that can be used to identify a specific individual. Perfect. That's exactly it. Now, what we don't realize as one, employees, or two, like let's put on that other hat, personal, we don't realize what that actually includes. So that includes, obviously, your health records, your home address, your email, your username, your tax records, your any financial records, any academic records, just any online user credentials, and actually even employee ID code, your IP address. So the list goes on and on and on. And it's really important to know in your day-to-day practice what are you touching that is PII? Now, the thing is you use the data, but actually it's the cyber criminals that want your data as well. So imagine Chapo, this cartel. He's an organized criminal organization that is large, it's sophisticated, they run like an enterprise, and they're breaking through systems that you can't even imagine, right? They're just like, they don't follow the law by any means, right? So the person on the right here on the image, I compare ransomware gangs, hackers, to the cartel. They obviously have been put in a category that actually everyone should be aware of, that they are like terrorists, because these ransomware gangs or hackers, they are the digital criminals. So they're the digital cartels, right? So we call them scanner artists, we call them con artists, con men, but truly they're hackers, because these digital criminals are going after your data. So the physical sense cartel, they've moved in terms of expansive of what their enterprise is in terms of the illegal activity. These digital criminals are doing the same, but it is your digital data that they're actually trying to actually obtain. Now, the thing is you think, well, how are they going to do that? But they can do that. And they're trying to find your data and your PII to sell. So in the latest global breach, the analysis ranked Canada 8th in the list of the most affected countries in the first quarter in 2025. So while the global levels seem to be have dropped dramatically following the alarming surge in 2024, hackers are still going strong. They're still trying in every way to steal your data. Now, I really want you to have those two hats on, the professional one, employer, whatever position you have in your company, and then your personal, because let's be honest, your digital data, really, there's no difference. But as an employee in a company, you have your personal data inside of the company as well. You have your HR records, you have your payment records. So you have a lot of PII in your own organization. Forget about your client's data, where you're servicing a client and you're obtaining all of their personal data, regardless of what the client is, the size of your organization or your department. At some point in time, you're handling a client's personal identification as well. So when you keep those lenses in mind, you realize you're pretty much touching personal data every single day. But on a professional level, you're touching it where you're falling under the law that you have to adhere to that. So my question to you, and Matt's going to put up a little question for you, because now that you have this lens of awareness that you're handling personal identifiable information every day, let's think about what it is you're handling every week. So I want you to think about it for a moment. Some of you, it's going to be pretty easy because let's say you're in the medical field, pretty much everything you touch is PII. So please submit your response here, and I'd love to be able to know what you're touching in the work that you do. Give you a minute for that. Now, there's a website that I'll share with you after, and that will also give you some more information about PII, because we just can't underestimate the powerful data that we're touching every day, and we overlook some of those aspects of what it is. And in the data set that we collect all of this information, it is pretty harmful as a collection of data when you're doing, let's say, one client and you're entering in all the data of that client. And we really are collecting a lot of information per person, whether you're in the company or whether you're servicing a client. So we really have a lot of valuable information at our fingertips. And it's really important for you to keep in mind it's available at our fingertips. Okay, so Matt, if you want to close the poll, it looks like there's some good responses. And then you can go ahead and list them off.
Sorry. It's muted there. Sorry, we have payroll, none,
Mhm.
SINs, bank info, names, addresses, phone numbers, financial data, everything except credit card information,
Mhm.
banking information, client
Mhm.
identification, banking, social insurance numbers, client names, addresses, numbers, insurance numbers, account numbers, bank account numbers. That was one person, all six of those. Um, client records, names and phone numbers, tax numbers, address, name, SIN, income, date of birth, status, business relationships. That is one person as well. Another
Wow. Wow.
8-digit one there. Employees SIN
Yeah.
is the last one there.
Though, yeah, that's a lot of confidential data you're handling. And that's excellent because that's the role you're in. So you're just doing your job every day, right? But I want you to be able to kind of consider what happens with what we're doing with that data. So walk with me here as I kind of explain this. So you are an access point to your organization because you're the one hired to do that role to be able to handle that data. So you're the HR, you're the financial controller, or you're one of the reps that handle client intake, you name it. It doesn't matter what it is, but you're the person hired to be able to do that particular role. And then you're handling that data and then you're inputting it. Now, you all have different software. It doesn't matter what software you're using, but you're all using it and then entering it digitally. We aren't doing pen and paper anymore, right? If we were, that would be a little easier, let's be honest, but that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about the way we're entering digital data inside of software, right? And it's us that is entering in that data, right? You're hired to do that. So now, if you are the one entering that data, that means you have to log in as you to be able to get into that system so that you can get that privilege to be able to see that data, right? It is you. You can't necessarily say to anyone, come enter in this information because they have to have access, right? So for example, you know very well, if you're a financial controller, not everyone in the organization is going to have access to the financial records or reporting, right? So it's kind of tiered, you know? The same thing goes for the data you're touching. You're all touching different data and you're all having different access to it. So some of you see all of the data, some of you see part of the data. But the point is that you are touching it and you're accessing it. So the problem here is what is happening is hackers know that if they can get to any part of acting and being like you, they can get into the same system you're getting into, right? So basically we are saying you think you're entering into the system, but also hackers have figured out how to be access your data, your credentials to be able to get in the same system as you. So that's what we're up against, right? And this is all happening so fast, we can't understand the depth of what they're doing and how they're doing it, right? But maybe just to simplify it, I just want to let you know, prepare every day to know that you're going to get conned. Everyone understands what that means, right? So while I don't want to use and I don't need to use elaborate terms, and trust me, in cybersecurity, we have so many terms that are going to go right over your head, okay? But if I can simplify it to say, you're about to be conned, then you can go, okay, I don't want to be conned. No way do I want to be conned. And that is what we want to get to. We want to be able to be a little bit more on guard, be a little bit more accountable, and be a little bit more aware that digitally we have to protect our assets just as much as we would protect our home assets. We have a front door on our home. We have a lock on our home, and some of us even have a digital security system on our home because we know that our home is our little fortress and we're going to protect it. And we have a few different ways to protect our physical home and our physical assets. So we need to act in the same way to protect our digital assets. So 82% of cyber incidences are caused by uninformed employees. And informed is by knowing that the methods of what these hackers are doing and how they're doing it. Now, I don't expect you to be an expert in the ransomware gangs, their tactics, how technical it is, but I'm going to give you the information that will give you enough to be able to walk away from the session and go, I can do that. I can definitely do that. And I don't have to understand, like, for example, you turn on a light switch in your home, you don't need to know the inner workings of the wiring of how that works. So I'm going to do the same thing today. So we're under attack from sophisticated phishing campaigns, right? So they're targeting all employees of every organization and every day. So one, if you can just be prepared for that, knowing that's happening, instead of thinking, oh, I don't have anything a hacker would want, put on the lens of, oh, I am now a target and I'm going to have this happen every day from now on. And the reason you're going to know that is because one, you work for a company where you log into software. Any software is vulnerable, and any credential that is used to log into a software is vulnerable, right? So there's high quality phishing attacks, and it's going to stay. So we call it phishing, right? Where you can have phishing campaigns come in different ways, and we'll go over it a little bit, but phishing is here to stay. So in all of our advancement in technology, we cannot get ahead of this one. We can't. We keep thinking, okay, if we help you with your better passwords, if we help you with protecting the systems that we set up for you, you'll be okay. If we ensure that you set up only a password for one account and not similar accounts, all of these things, they are not enough, because the hackers are continually finding new ways to trick us. And they're doing it through this manipulation, this emotional manipulation. And it is really, really effective, right? So they will ploy with us, sense of urgency, sense of emotion. And did you know that employees who started a company, they're the target within the first 3 weeks of starting in an organization? Why? Well, one, because they don't know who's who in the organization. So the tactics that are used towards a new employee are simple and they're somewhat ridiculous, but they work. And I mean it by saying they work. They are doing them today, and they're going to continue to do them until they don't work. And the reason they work is because a new employee is vulnerable. They don't know, they can't say no to certain things, to especially incoming requests from who they think may be their manager or their colleague or their boss. So there's just all sorts of various reasons why that works. Can we stop that? Yeah, we can. We can help new employees by giving them the proper training as soon as they start, so they know what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do and what to be aware of. But they are a target, especially the first 3 weeks. Now, Microsoft also remains the most frequently imitated brand. So with about 43.1% of phishing attempts using this tactic. So that means a new employee doesn't know the system very well, gets incoming messages, and it's through Microsoft and it's about Microsoft, and they just think they have to comply because they're a new employee and they want to please you, they want to do a great job. So there's just too many variables here where you can see how things could go wrong for a new employee. Now, there's a lot of tactics they're using, and I'm just going to show you a list here, just a few. They're changing and adding all the time because of AI. AI has doubled this, the tactics using AI. But when we look at these hacking, scamming schemes, you will look here and you will see I have phishing as a service, and you will see I vishing as a service. So what happens is these criminals are setting up enterprises, and we call it crime as a service for a reason, because they break it down to these types of services where they have specialized hackers, and that's all they focus on. They focus on phishing as a service. So they're going to continually go, how can we find a tactic that's going to trick you to do what we want you to do? And then we'll get from you what we want. Now, so there's automation, bots, and a lot of technology behind all this. But I will go into this one particular part. When it comes to phishing, all you need to know is this is what they're going to do. They're going to send malicious software in a hyperlink, right? And that hyperlink it's programmed to cause damage to a device, software, or any network inside of that link. That link is vicious, right? It's going to cause harm, and it's it's given different jobs depending on the hacker's ability. It can do all sorts of things, but clicking on that link, it activates this malware to get into your system and do its job. And it's programmed to do a job, whether it's to steal data or whether it's to shut down your computer system, and you can no longer log into any system in your network at all, regardless of where you're located and how you access that. So it's pretty powerful in its kind of exploit, we call it. So you need to understand, even though you might not understand the inner workings of what a malicious link is or what it does, how it does it, you need to understand it has power once clicked on. That's the like bomb where it just goes activate. So we want to make sure we're never touching on any links that we don't understand. Now that's where they trick us, because they trick us with nice little emails that have authentic, labeling where it says Microsoft. It says the exact same font that Microsoft would use. It has the exact same terminology that Microsoft would use, except it's not real at all. And so for you, one, if you're a new employee at a company or you're just a Microsoft user, you're going to have to look at this with a little bit more scrutiny to understand this is actually a fake email or a phishing email, right? So we aren't going to be experts at this. Like, I've been tricked before as well. And it's really frustrating to be tricked by this, but this is how elaborate they are. They're stealth. So all I can ask you to do is just make sure that you understand that regardless of their tactics, you have to be able to be a little bit more of a critical thinker. You have to have a little bit of a different lens to go, what am I looking for now? And so here's another one. Daily, you're going to get incoming correspondence like this. It looks real because you think, well, it's an email coming to me, but no, there's so many factors here that are going to trick us. And we need to be aware of just like one of them that seems off, right? So when we're looking at this is no longer a technical issue. This is a human one. So we have to look at this going, okay, I have to take accountability. Unfortunately, I wish we could have software that would take care of this, but it isn't. They can always bypass the filtering system. There's a small percentage that does. So even if you have a managed service provider like Smart Dolphins, they can do as much work as they want, but these hackers are going to continually advance their abilities to be able to trick you and get through the filtering system. So in this email, you'll see it says Rihanna Estes, but it doesn't have the right email address. That's what you have to look for every time. And then it has a link. And if you hover over it, you'll see it has not the same corresponding link to a website that is regarding for this survey. And then it says HR department analyst. So the thing is like, you might not know if this is real or not. And that's maybe not really what you're going to have to be worried about. You're going to have to be worried about, I need to scan this email for always seeing who is the sender, who's sending this to me. Is this a real email address? Hover over the link. Is this really a link that's legit? And is it real? Like, for example, if you work for a company and you have to look at the sign-off HR department analyst, do you even have that as a title in your signature? That could be the dead giveaway. But we can't just take for granted that we have this incoming request, we should respond to everything. That's mistake number one. Mistake number two, trusting all the correspondence. We can no longer trust all the incoming correspondences because there's too many ways for them to slide through and trick us. So we have to be proactive, and every time we look at incoming communication, we have to just review it. Now, it takes 5 seconds. It doesn't take a long time, but it means us not hurrying through tasks and actually taking a moment going, right, I'm a target, I'm about to be conned, and they're going to be able to copy any logo, any correspondence, any person's official, let's say, position, and copy every single aspect of anything about your company. You have to be able to go, I have to verify. I have to be able to look and just double check if this is real before you click on any link. For example, for this, I would have called my HR coordinator and went, did you just send out a survey? And they'd be like, no, we don't know what you're talking about. Boom. So that's, a simple fix. Then you just delete this email and you're on your way, move on to the next task. So it wouldn't always require you to verify, but if you ever feel like, oh, I don't know if I should be doing this or not, then you verify. The other incoming issue is our phone is also an access point. So data is being sold on the dark web, and you can't trust who has your personal data. So you can't trust incoming texts because you're going, how did they get my phone number? That's not the question we have to ask. We have to go, what is this about? Now we're getting this every day. This is unfamiliar to anybody. But the thing is that like I got this text. This is actually sent to me. Now, funny enough is I don't have a Netflix account. So I immediately knew this was not legit. So I was able to go, well, that's a scam. But what if you have a Netflix account? You would think, well, maybe this is legit. Maybe I need to fix this because I have an issue with my payment. Well, that's the issue. One, you have to ask yourself, would Netflix text me? Two, my upcoming billing cycle payment was unsuccessful. What if it wasn't your time to pay that bill? And yet you're getting that today and you already paid it like 2 days ago, let's say, or it's coming up in 3 weeks from now. So these little things you have to ask yourself to make you go, this ain't real. And so then you could go, delete. And that's all you have to do. Delete and block, actually. And you're going to find yourself doing that numerous times in a given week. But this is where you're vulnerable as well, because of the access point of what our digital assets are, our phone, our iPad, our laptop. Now, here's an example. I just want to show you. Oops. So the consequences of engaging with unexpected texts, they can, or calls, whether they're personal or professional, they can be really severe due to the rising cyber threats. And this is called smishing. So those who have had texts, you can understand, oh, that's not a big deal, I'll just delete it. But that's actually what could happen if you click on a link inside of your text. So how many thumbs up if you can just give me a reaction? How many of you have had incoming texts from unknown users? Because I think it's really commonplace, isn't it? I want to see the majority of you if you have, because maybe you ignore it, maybe you know to delete and block, I don't know. But it's become so commonplace that we might think, well, everyone knows how to handle this. But the thing is no, not everyone does. You need to know that that is where the risk is. That is where you are the target, right? So now the threat landscape over this year, it's like the numbers are very interesting, right? So customer PII, that is the most targeted, sorry, I spelled the L, I didn't put THE. So it's the most targeted data type in breaches and accounts for 53% of the compromised data globally. So when we were talking about PII, that's like, it's a alarming stat, right? Alarming. So, we're really vulnerable to these attacks because we just don't have all of the, security in place for our organization or our individuals or our software. Also, stolen or compromised credentials are number 2 cause of data breaches. That means your username and your password. So my question to you is, right now, another poll will come up from Matthew. What steps do you take to ensure your login credentials are secure? Do you have any? If so, what are they? Again, this is fine. You won't necessarily just put whatever your answer is, because we have over 100 applications we use. If you were to count what you use personally and like all the apps on your phone that you have to have a password and a username to log in, and then your work applications, we have over 100 of them. 100. So that means you have to know 100 passwords, right? One answer is OTP. Yes, excellent. One-time password is what OTP stands for. So I don't know about you, but 100 is a lot to memorize. And I think some people think that they want to memorize 100 passwords, but one authenticator app, excellent. And maybe this isn't something you've really put a lot of thought to. I hope you will after today, because that's kind of what my goal is that you would think about your personal security differently, besides how you lock up your house, right? Because I think that this is the security we want to care about. We want to care about our personal security and our digital security. So awesome. Okay, so how about Matt, you can close the poll and let us know what's the general census here of how people take steps to secure their login credentials.
Yeah, so got 14 responses here. So two-step authenticators. We got MFA.
Yes.
We got OTP twice.
Okay.
MFA and KeyPass. Complicated password. And then we got multi-factor authentication.
Yeah.
Complicated passwords that change regularly. I used a long alphanumeric password and OTP.
Excellent.
Password banks. I used a long. Oh, same submission twice. Change regularly. Password manager. I used a long alphanumeric password and OTP.
Excellent. Okay.
Yeah.
So some of you are being assertive in this and you're taking this into your own hands and going, well, I have to protect my data. So that's excellent, because I think that if you can look at it the same way where you're going, okay, I lock up my house and I don't leave my house without locking it, or I lock up my car when I leave it, why wouldn't I lock up my assets that are digital? And that's what I want you to be able to know, that that's what we have to do. Every single asset, that is the apps that you use, those are assets. Those are digital assets that contain confidential information. Even if it's a little confidential information, we have to protect it. Now, the cost of the breaches, so the global cost, average cost of a data breach in 2025 so far, it's decreased to 4.4 million. So it's down 9% from 4.88 million in 2024. Now, that's still a lot of an average cost of a data breach for an organization. Now, Canada doesn't track these stats, so this is why I have to get this in the US. Companies track all sorts of aspects around cyber criminals, cyber activity, what they're stealing, how they're stealing it, where they're selling it, and the cost of a data breach. And it's, every organization's required to report it after over a certain amount of credentials being compromised. So this data is pretty accurate because organizations cannot report, otherwise they get fined and they get sued. So it's become law in this state, so that's tracking is pretty good. In Canada, we have privacy laws in place. They don't necessarily have as stringent laws. They're getting better. And this is all improving because of what these cyber criminals are doing to us, small, medium, and large size of organizations. So 63% of ransomware victims refused to pay attackers in 2025, and that's up from 59% in 2024. And that's excellent. Now, that's still an astounding amount of people paying, organizations paying. But you need to understand that our message is we should never pay a ransomware attacker. Never, never, because they're going to continue to with their crimes and keep expanding because it's successful, right? We don't want to reward a criminal for getting away with doing something unlawful. Now, when we look at what has happened here in Canada, we have many breaches that happen in Canada. London Drugs was a big one that happened last year that shut that store down for 10 days, and they had to negotiate with a ransomware gang. Lockbit ransomware gang was the one that was responsible for that, and they asked for a ridiculous amount of money. They asked for 25 million. Now, could you, as an organization, let's say you were targeted, could you afford to pay a ransom? I mean, do you have a budget line on your budget that says, okay, we have a cybersecurity budget. 2, we have the money to pay a cybersecurity hacker if they shut down our system. And 3, we could be operational because we can handle and have everything in place to be able to handle a cybersecurity attack. Those are questions that you could ask your team leaders and your CEO. And it would be alarming if you will find out that most organizations aren't ready for this. So it's really important for you to understand we've got to take this and be a little bit more proactive, right? And just one thing I want to let you know about credentials right now, the average amount of times an employee reuses a password is 13. So we need to start with that, where we can, as an organization, go, maybe we need better password hygiene. So some of you have some really great methods in place to protect your passwords, but we can't afford to reuse passwords, like not even for one account, because it's like a domino effect, right? If they get into one system, then they're going to try any other system because they just know, well, I'll get in because I'll just keep reusing the same password. I love my cat password, and then they're off and running. So we need to have a policy in place. We need to follow the standards that are, NIST has some really good standards that define how to have a good password management policy. And then you can use a password manager. So a couple of you mentioned you use that. That's really easy. It works personally and professionally so that you can, any app you're using, you're just inputting it into a vault and it's protecting your passwords. It encrypts it inside the vault. So even no matter what, if they, let's say they got inside of the password manager system, like I use Bitwarden, Smart Dolphins uses KeePass, but it doesn't matter because there's excellent password managers out there. You would have your passwords encrypted in there. It helps store them. It helps bring them to log into sites. It makes it really easy to use. And when using a password manager, it takes about 5 seconds to use when you're logging into a new system. It's not time consuming at all. And it's sure better than remembering it or writing it down in notes or putting it in an Excel spreadsheet, which is a never, no, or in your Gmail notes and never, no. So really important to be able to be a bit more proactive on that front and look at your cyber hygiene to go, okay, how am I managing them? Could I do better? And so just putting them in a vault where they can be secure and then no access to no external access whatsoever except by you. Now, AI is a really alarming change for us, right? It's really changing the way we do work, right? But it also can create an identity on any device, right? So it can create deepfake, which images. It can create fake voices. And it can create really great fake emails, right? So business identity compromise, that is really an area where organizations can be vulnerable because it can send all those fake emails and look legit. So AI is going to really alter the way we as cybersecurity professionals manage cybersecurity because of that. There's so many good things with AI, but I just need you to be aware that it really is an affront to your security as well if you aren't proactive by looking at the threat actors out there and how they're using them. So we're using them for good, they're going to use them for harm. All right. So the mindset I need you to take from today is that you are the human firewall. So you have the ability to set up a password manager. I would recommend you do it because passwords actually still matter in your day-to-day work. Even if you do single sign-on, you still have to have a password to get into that system in your organization. But then outside of work, you still have all those passwords to get into your bank, to get into your healthcare app, per se, or to get into your shopping app, you name it. So really, your personal life and your professional life are really blended in so many ways. And we all know this. So we have to know that passwords really do matter so that you're protecting each asset that you log into. And MFA, many of you mentioned MFA, multi-factor authentication. If you could just have the mentality of, you can't enter this software without using this, you'll be putting your mind at ease, you'll be doing right by your organization, you'll be doing right by you, and you can then know that you are verifying that you're getting into the system and it's you and you only. Whereas if you were in Mexico and you're on vacation and you see a prompt that comes on your phone saying, oh, someone's trying to get into are you trying to get into your SharePoint app? And it gives you an MFA prompt and you're like, first of all, I'm not working. 2, I'm out of country. This is the alarming message that you would get that would let you know your credentials were compromised and they're trying to get into your system. And you have MFA in there activated, so it prompts so that they are stopped right there because the prompt will be denied and they won't be able to get into your system. So these are just little measures that have incredible results. So MFA, you know very well, takes a few seconds to utilize to be able to verify you're going into that account, but it's a lifesaver for your organization to know we are going to prevent hackers that much more by putting in that layer of security. Now, when you're looking at Wi-Fi, I would just recommend a couple things. There's a list of things here, but when you're out and about, traveling or out for coffee, a couple things. One is whether you're at a Starbucks, whether you're in an airport, or whether you're at a hotel, just know never work on confidential information on any public Wi-Fi out there. No banking, no company data, like no logging into your company systems, and no emails on a public Wi-Fi. If you have virtual VPN, a virtual private network, easy, 100%. But outside of that, do all of that before you go onto a Wi-Fi system, because those can be compromised and we call hijacked, where a hacker can just act like a Starbucks Wi-Fi, and then you're giving them all the ability to see everything you've logged into just by accessing the Wi-Fi system at a Starbucks, for example, or the airport. So it's vulnerable in so many ways. So if you just take that one little step, then you'll prevent yourself from having incredible amount of headaches. Now, I want you to also know from this session, from now on, just don't believe all of the communication coming your way. Again, we're so trusting. I think if you could take a little bit more of a proactive approach by going, okay, what's incoming and how do I know it's real? So are you using a secure texting app? That's important. What about instant messages on social media? That's a nightmare. There's so much fake messaging on all of the social media sites that it's hard to even believe what's real. So be very careful, even if it says, oh, I'm your Aunt Linda here. How are you? Don't believe every incoming message, right? And then also follow your company's communication processes. And the reason you need to do that, and if you don't know what they are, very important for you to find out what they are because of this one reason alone. So I'll give you an example next.
Hey, Maria, I think I got locked out of my work email. Can you text me the company bank details at this number?
We're really not supposed to do that. You should contact IT.
Yeah, I know, but the boss is asking me to take care of something right now. Just text the details to this number. I'll put in a ticket later.
Hang on. What's the safe word?
Maria, I don't have time for this. The boss is going to...
With AI, scammers can sound like anyone. Create a safe word with your workplace today.
Yes, so has anyone even thought of a safe word or a code word to be able to use for your company? Because that is what we're up against, is we're up against the authentication that we can't even determine with our own ears who we're talking to on a phone. So with what's happening out there in the kind of the landscape, we recommend that you get a code word in place and you use a safe word in place. So I use it with my family as well, because again, we're bombarded personally so much through our phones that it's quite scary of how often we're being tricked. And it's really scary when you do get tricked. And then if you can do that for your family members, and maybe some of you have been through this already. Maybe you've had a family member compromise. They're trying to put that information out there on the news so that people understand how vulnerable we are to these hackers, scammers that are targeting us because of all of our digital technology that we use. We're so advanced, but we're not secure. So we need to increase our security and be more diligent and proactive to be able to protect all of us, our assets, our organization, our data, our family, our loved ones, in all of these different methods. So it sounds a little bit overwhelming, but at the end of the day, the more tools you have, more awareness you have, then you can be proactive and just go, oh, I don't have to do that. I don't have to answer that person. I can just say, oh, I've got to go, and hang up. You don't owe anybody an explanation, and you don't have to be rude. You can just say, I'm sorry, I've got to go, and hang up. Now, the thing is, no boss, no employer would ever make incredible demands on you to make you feel uncomfortable. No one. That's not even going to be possible. So the sense of urgency, do it now, hurry up, I need this. What about this? What about that? You need to know that kind of pressure would never be put on you. You could always just go, okay, I need a minute. I'll get that for you, and hang up. You could be lying. Doesn't matter. You just need to get off that phone. And if you are not sure it was them, this is again where you go verify and go call the real person on another, like on the number you do have of theirs, and call them. Because again, numbers can be spoofed, organizations can be spoofed. So I could get a phone call from Rogers Telecommunications, and it could not be Rogers. And so you've probably seen that as well. So it's so easy for us to be tricked. So that's where we need to go, I'm sorry, I got to go, and be polite, hang up. And if they don't let you hang up, hang up. So we have to take the power back and go, oh, right. But we have to encourage everybody around us to be on the same page. So some key takeaways I want to be able to cover with you is that implement that password manager, so that you can use it every day, and then you're following the best practices in cybersecurity and following some elevated cybersecurity hygiene as well. You're going to use MFA every day on your critical accounts, right? So if you have a subscription to, let's say you log into the newspaper, let's say you have Globe and Mail, let's say, paid. You don't have to worry too much about that one per se. That's not going to break you, but you probably have your credentials there and a credit card on their system. So everything you use has some kind of PII linked to it. So making sure you use MFA to all accounts, take 5 seconds just to verify the incoming messages, the attachments. Never download the attachments. From this point, it's just best to be safe not to ever download attachments. And then never click on the links. Verify incoming calls the way you need to in your organization. But again, that communication channel that your organization uses, follow it. Processes, follow it. If anything comes in between the process you do at work, I would also recommend don't ever let any incoming email, incoming phone, or incoming text ever change the process you follow at work for processing invoices, processing client data, processing HR records, anything, because that we call man in the middle. That is where a cyber attacker is coming in and injecting himself and telling you to do something that you think, oh, okay, I guess you want me to change the vendor invoicing process because your payment needs to be different in what we have in the system. That incoming communication from this external person claiming to be a vendor could actually just be the hacker, right? So follow your process, whatever those processes are, and never let an incoming communication change that. If something comes in, let's say the vendor says, please change our payment process, you go and change it officially with sign off from your other team members first, and then go back to the vendor after, but never do anything in terms of that sense of urgency, because that's where they're getting us as well. They're coming and injecting inside of our processes. I've seen it. I've had clients that have had that experience, and it's devastating. Okay, so if you assume that you're the target, you'll be a lot more on guard than you've ever been. And then just simply delete anything you doubt or hang up if you doubt. So that concludes what I want to cover with you today. And if you need any clarification, I'm happy to be able to clarify that with you. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some information inside the chat. And these are resources that you can refer to. You can do a little bit of reading, but they're really helpful to be able to help you and your team. Let's say you want to go back and address some of these inside of your team meeting, use a couple of these resources, but also personally, some of these are really handy because they can let you be really quick links. So for example, in here, I gave you change your privacy settings. Sometimes we have our privacy settings for the whole world to see everything for everything that we use. Go into that website, double check your privacy settings and change what you feel is priority for you. And then you can be able to kind of block and guard yourself a little bit more digitally that way as well. So anyway, these resources should be helpful. Again, share them in your organization if you want. I find them to be very, very useful. So with that, go ahead, Matt.